All right. So we'll start with guesstimates today. Guesstimates are extremely important for consulting, and they are also important for product management. Let's say if you are asked 10 questions, right, out of in the entire process, in the entire hiring process of one company, then you will be asked at least 1 to 2 questions from product guesstimates. And I showed the importance to you in the initial slide also, right? The importance of these types of questions. So if you notice, this comes under, I think this comes under analysis questions, and about 12% or all firms ask these types of questions. So yeah, talking about guesstimates, have you solved? How many of you have solved guesstimates before while preparing for any kinds of interviews or during one of our consulting sessions or any other time?
I have some idea.
Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is new for most people. So I'll start from the very basic. So when we want to estimate some number, for example, let's say the population or the number of cars running in Bangalore, right? Or the number of cars parked in Bangalore at this time. It's around 10 p.m. So number of cars parked in Bangalore at 10 p.m. So something of this sort, if you want to estimate, then you will try to use some intelligent guesses, right? You will answer your question in a structured manner in order to arrive at one single number or a ballpark range. That is guesstimates. And when you talk about guesstimates, you need to know a few basic numbers. For example, world population, it has increased now. It was 7. Now these are old figures. So I just want to stress on the fact that these are some things that you should know. So rough idea of the total world population, gender ratio in India or in the world. And so this is for the world, 50%. For India also, it's 50%. And then continents, what's the population of each continent? Basic idea, I don't need to learn all these numbers, but at least a basic split between each continent. For example, I know for a fact that there are 0 people living in Antarctica, and then most of the population is concentrated in Asia, about 60%. And then a split between age groups. This is also very important. And when you are solving questions, right, you would these splits would make it easier for you to solve this question, and we'll see why. We'll see that in an example. Income group, of course, about 15% people in India are extremely poor. About 55% are from the low income group. Sorry, this is for the world again. Yeah, about 15% are from the middle income groups, and then 15% from upper middle and high income groups. And the splits are slightly different for India. Then we have marital status, we have age groups. So all this you need to know, and population of Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore. These 3 you should know, right? And just to again reiterate the same fact, I just want to mention that you need to learn numbers like area of India, area of Delhi, right? These are basic numbers which you should at least have an idea, so that when you're solving questions that require some of these estimates, it becomes easier for you. Average size of family in India is 5, then population of Delhi is about 3 crores. Above and below poverty line, right, in India and in Delhi. Delhi becomes important because many times, of course, it's the capital of India, so many times people ask specifically about Delhi, right? And Bangalore is becoming increasingly important. People ask questions around, for example, there was one question that I had around Bangalore. Yeah, number of WhatsApp messages being sent in Bangalore in one day. Because most of these tech firms are based in Bangalore, and there's a high chance that whenever you are interviewing for a company, their office is in Bangalore. So there's this possibility, right? All right, some examples now. Revenue through ads, annual revenue through click ads, impressions, etc. And this might be asked in a Google interview, for example. What's the total ad revenue from? What's the total ad revenue of Google? So of course you don't need to arrive at the exact numbers, just a basic ballpark range. And more important is the process with which you solve, right? This will become clear in just a bit when we'll be solving through a very structured approach. All right. Another example: total number of cars or light motor vehicles running on Indian roads. Right. This is slightly complex, and we'll cover a roads example in uh, after this one. This is one example that we'll cover. This was asked in an Unacademy APM interview process in IIT Madras, I believe. And this was the question that was asked. Total number of WhatsApp messages being sent in Bangalore in one day. So before taking up this question, I'll take up a different question, uh, which is slightly easier to solve. All right. So this is the question we'll be solving right now. So what is the total number of cars or light motor vehicles running on Indian roads? Right. This is the question that we want to solve. So how do we start? This is a very broad question. The scope is very broad. We need to narrow down the scope first of all. And how do we narrow down the scope? We ask some clarifying questions. That is the first step. So keep in mind that when the interviewer asks you this question or any guesstimate, you should not start answering right away. You should first start asking some more questions which help you to drill down on that particular question, right? All right. So the questions I am about to, of course, ask some of these questions from you. Go ahead and ask what clarifying questions that you'll be asking, and some of them have already started flowing. So what
There
time
are in the
will we
chat
consider?
right here.
Yes. So what time will we consider? Uh, Correct, correct. So there will be a huge difference in the number of vehicles running at 2 p.m. let's say versus 10 p.m. So what time will we
Also,
consider? This is a good question. Yeah.
is there only on the weekdays or the weekends, like both or the both?
Days, yes. Which day are we talking about? Or weekday or weekend basically. Correct, correct. Um, State-wise. So state-wise, we have 28 states would be difficult, right? State-wise would be tough. So either classify it into three or four categories or maximum five categories, but 28 categories is very tough. Or let's say if you'll have to club, right? End of the day, you'll have to say that these northeastern regions have very less um, density of vehicles, and the northern regions, even the Jammu and Kashmir region, and even Uttarakhand, Himachal, they have very less quantity of these vehicles. So again, that would be a very less dense area. Then you'll have to move to northern regions like Punjab, Haryana, UP, Bihar, and then you'll have to move to southern regions. So you'll anyway have to club. So no point of going state-wise. Urban region, I think you're asking whether we are just. So this is a question, right? Urban region or the even villages or towns, cities. In fact, tier one, two, three cities versus villages and towns. That kind of thing you should go ahead with. Yes, that is something you can ask. That is something you can classify your. You can that can be basis for the categories that you make. Okay, more questions. See, the more questions you ask, the easier it will become for you to solve this question. Uh, what about, okay, we have already told that we are looking at number of cars, so we won't consider trucks, buses, and all. Um, what about the cars that are parked at home? Right, we are not considering them. That is clear from the question itself. What about the cars that are not being used currently but would be used at some point in the future? Let's say they're not being used at 2 p.m. but they'll be used at 7 p.m. Let's say. Will that edge case be covered? Yes, that will be covered because you've already asked what time that we are considering. So keep in mind that you need to ask these questions to yourself while solving this question, right? You need to note the corner cases. Make sure you consider those corner, the edge cases, right? That is extremely important, because sometimes the interviewer just tests this fact, that whether the person is has given a wholesome kind of an analysis, or has he, very lethargically left out something. That should not be the case. uh, Good question. Yes, what exactly does Indian road mean? Are we looking at only national highways or even the village roads, whatever? So, to answer this question, we are just looking at the highways, which includes the national highways also. We are not looking at the village roads or anything of that sort. So, let's move to clarifying pointers now. Uh, these are some questions that I would have asked. So I will tell the interviewer. In fact, I'll not ask this. I'll just tell the interviewer that I will calculate the total number of cars at a given point in time. Right? Let's say 3 p.m. Does that seem fine to you? That will be the question. I frame it in such a way that I have assumed this, and is it fine with the interviewer or not? That is the way I'll ask this question. Second, this would also include the cars not being used and are at home but may be used at some point in the future. So these can be two clarifying questions, clarifying pointers, sorry. Um, okay, more questions, of course. The highways question can be there. Then we have the time of the day, I've already told you. We'll fix that. Now we'll start solving this question. We have enough information. Let's start solving. What would be the approach that you would use? What would be the basis of segmentation? What would be the split basis? Someone told demography, and someone also told the region, right? Kritika told that we would look at the urban regions and then the
Top down
villages.
method we can use.
Uh, so tell everyone, Aryan, what do you mean by top down?
Basically, in the top-down method, we start with the bigger condition. Like for this condition, we can take the population of the country. Then through that, we will break it out in the smaller pieces. Like from population, we can consider into urban and rural population. Then urban, we can consider according to income. We can this how we can degrade it to the smaller ones.
Perfect, correct. So I don't want to introduce these terms to you, top-down approach, bottom-up, but it is very intuitive that you move from a very broad kind of a problem statement, and you solve it by segmenting it into smaller chunks, right? You solve one step at a time, and you solve it by dividing the big problem into smaller sub-problems. And that is a way to solve problems brilliantly. That is a proven method. Sub problems, dividing a big problem into sub problems. That is exactly the sense of the top down approach. So what we do here is we segment based on someone told income, someone also mentioned demography. So what exactly in demography, Vaishnavi, are we talking about? So what exactly are we talking about? Demography can be anything, right? Age, gender.
Yes, it was according to the working population and the population which is not working, so we can consider that.
All right, all right. So working versus non-working population.
Can we consider populations that say we can calculate the average value of the car that is sold to the person, and what is the average pay of the person as well, and the population above that they would probably own a vehicle.
So sounds good, but what about if a person has a more expensive car or a less expensive car? That we don't need that information, right? Because anyway, we'll count the car as one. So I'm not sure how that will help. just divide it basis the income or working population, like Vaishnavi said, or let's say some other thing in region basis, something like that. So we can do that. Okay, we can divide population in 70-30 ratio where each family can have one car in urban segment. See, first of all, this is slightly basic. 70-30 becomes, this is definitely something that you can do, but try to think of a more nuanced approach or something more complex. This is very basic. 70 is rural population and 30 is urban, right? That I'm assuming that
Yeah,
you
yes,
said.
sir. Yes, sir.
So that is something that you can do. But try to think of something more complex. So this income thing is perfect. We need to divide basis the income, because the income numbers give us an idea that these people would be able to afford a car or not. So the income is the best way to split this. Any other ideas to split?
My idea is basically like, say the average price of the car sold is 5 lakhs. So we can say that everyone who is earning above 5 lakhs might own a car. And on average, we can say 1.5 cars, because people might even own two.
Okay, so 1.5 cars, because people might not even own a car, and some people might own 2 cars. All right, so that is something that you can do. So 5 lakhs, you can probably keep that as a checkpoint. 5 lakhs is good. Um, in fact, if you want to make it more, detailed, you can look at less than 2 lakhs, and then 2 to 5 lakhs, and greater than 5 lakhs, and or even 5 to 10 lakhs, and then 10 lakhs or greater than that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those can be
Segregating
ways.
like that would be a more price, I guess,
Sorry.
according to me. Segregating it to into parts like the from like you said 2 to 5, then 5 to 10 would be more appropriate.
Exactly. So you get to, when you divide it into smaller parts, first of all, you understand the needs better. You understand that small segment better. So it is always better to segregate it into smaller segments. And when possible, of course, look at the larger ones. Now, in my answer, I'll just quickly add it here. One second. Yeah, I have solved it using this approach. Yes, can everyone see this? All right. So what I've done is, I have first of all, this is the population, and I have written as below poverty line who cannot afford cars. Right. 20 people are living below this poverty line, which means about 80% of the people can afford cars. Right. Only 260 million people can actually afford cars, and then out of this number, we divide this number into these three segments. One is rich families. This is of course according to income, middle income and lower income. 40, 40 and 20. This is the kind of split I have made here. So in rich families, every person owns one car, let's say. These are the rich families. Let's say 4 people are there in the family. We'll have 4 cars or 3 cars. Middle income, we'll have 2 cars. Lower income, 1 car owned by one family. Right? If you notice, everything is according to family. The units should be number of people, right? So we'll have to divide the family further into number of people. So in middle income, we take 5 as the average. In middle income we take 4 as the number, as average number of people in one family, and in lower income we take 5. This is a general trend that we follow. You may take 4. That is also perfect. So that is there. You multiply 40% by 1 car, right? And then you add it to 40% into 2 cars per 4 people, and then 20% own 1 car per 5 people, right? 1 car for 5 people here, 2 cars for 4 people here, and 1 car for 1 person here. So that is how you divide this, and we get this numbers: 169 million people can drive a car. So that is this same approach. All right. Okay. This is one approach. Now I have another approach. What can be other approaches to solving this? So we talked about demography. We talked about income. We didn't talk about age groups, right? Less than 18 cannot drive a car, at least legally. So we can divide it according to age groups, and greater than 70 also we don't have. We have a very small amount of population driving a car above 65 years or 70 years of age, let's say, right? So we can divide it basis the age group as well. That is exactly what's there in the second approach. Again, 20% people living below poverty line cannot afford cars, which means only the rest of the 80%, you'll have to check this number, I'm not sure if it is correct, but only 80% of the 1.3 billion people that live in India, they can afford cars. I'm not saying they can buy cars, but they can afford, right? And then out of these, 40% cannot drive because of three reasons. First one, of course, the less than 18 years age barrier, right? Only 20% in India, 20% in India cannot drive a car because they're less than 18 years of age. And above 70 years, I've already told you, they cannot drive. And about 10%, let's assume roughly, do not know how to drive a car, right? Even if they can drive or they can afford, I mean, even if they can afford a car, they'll not know how to drive it. So this gives this number, 156 million people. And why was approach 2 important? Because it gave me an idea that this number is correct. This number lies in the correct range at least, right? The ballpark range is correct. This is around 150 to 170 million, and this is around 150 to 170 million people, a million cars. So this is the total number of people who can drive a car. But what are we being asked? We are being asked the total number of cars running on Indian roads. So at one point in time, let's say even if you talk about the peak hours, right? Let's say 8 p.m. When all the offices start closing down and all the shops close. So at that time, around 60% of the people, I'm assuming, use their cars, right? Which is 60% of this number or 60% of the previous number, which was 169 million, and this means around 100 million cars. So if you notice, what I've done is I've used one approach and checked my answer using another approach. And this is something that we very commonly do. Try to, even if you get an answer and you don't know an approach to, just try to mentally verify that is this number correct, and or at least is this number something that seems intuitive, right? Or does this seem totally off track? So that is one helpful thing that you can do. Okay, and then this is one helpful split number. So about 65%. So within internet, right? 65% of the urban population have access to internet, and about 20% of the rural population have access to internet. This is internet penetration. And how many people are using mobile phones? About 45 crores in India, in the urban population, right? Almost, which means, so I'm saying everyone in urban population uses a mobile phone. I'm assuming that 95%, 100%, something like that. And then in the rural population, about 50 crore people own a mobile phone. So out of these, only 20% use a smartphone. And here about 70% are smartphone users. So these are some basic numbers that you should know. Even if you don't know the exact, even if you don't remember this number, you can estimate it there and then, right? You can just do a rough split. So urban is, let's say, 30% of Indian population, and rural is 70%, right? You can say that out of the 70% people, only about let's say 10% of them use a smartphone, use a mobile phone, or have a mobile phone, or 20%, let's say. So that is where you can get this number from. All right. Any questions still here? So we've solved one guesstimate and we've looked at a lot of these numbers. Right. Any questions still here? All right. So this cheat sheet again is helpful. About 1.4 billion population of India. Gender spread. These are the exact numbers: 52%, 48%. Then 75% is the literacy rate. 85% in males, 70% in females. And then urbanization. This very common split. You can either take 30-70 or even 40-60 would do. Right? This is for making your own analysis easier. You don't want to go into 35. These exact like 35 will make your calculation slightly tough. So you can simplify this.
Excuse me, Ashwin.
Yes.
There's a really good question in the chat that I have just seen. He's saying Vedanta is saying, what about cabs of Ola, Uber, and other taxis which are owned by the companies and driven by the lower income people?
Correct. Very good question. Very good question. So this is something you should, when you're talking about the clarifying questions, right? You should note this down. And so this one, I asked these questions, right? These clarifying questions. You should ask this question separately and make sure that you need to take these cabs into account or not. So here I think you should take these cars because you are talking about the light motor vehicles running on Indian roads, right? And probably you can take this in the lower income category. You can take this one car extra or something. I mean, you can account for this cabs thing in this category, in the third one, right? Make sure that you cover this. Or and this will of course make the interviewer feel that this person has at least thought of this edge case, right? This person has a knack for details. That is what they test through these kinds of questions. So do that and make sure you cover all the edge cases. Okay, so we were talking about the income spread. This is the urban-rural split. Then we have the income spread: higher, middle, lower, below poverty line. BPL is below poverty line. And spread age spread, right? 67% are 15 to 64 years of age. 65 plus is about this percent, whatever is left here. 27%, 0 to 14 years. And then, as I've already told you, Delhi's area and population is very important. Internet penetration, you all know, about 55-60% for rural. No, so yeah, and 45%. No, this is something. This is not correct. So I think this is something else. You can ignore this. And then population of metro cities: Delhi, Bombay, Kolkata, Chennai, and look at the population of Bangalore as well. And then the employment: about 40% people are employed in agriculture services, in agriculture industry, and about 35% in the industry. 25% in the industry. For example, the manufacturing industry or the rearing industry, whatever industry is there, trading, some kind of trades, textile industry, right? And then services, 35%. That is the employment split. Even if you learn everything that is there on this in this chart, I think you are good to go. You can start with a few questions. All right. Any questions still here? Okay. We'll probably take up this question. Okay. Yeah, we will take this question up. Let's solve this right now, and we'll see what we will see how your approach is different from my approach. So we can start with some questions, guys. Clarifying questions for this one. We need to estimate number of LED devices sold in Bangalore. So I
So
think
the
one,
LED devices.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly,
sorry,
guys.
one
Yes,
question is
this is
like,
the
so
same
the
question I'm
LED
asking.
devices,
Yes,
LED devices are like those are big or the smaller ones, like heavy duty or like smaller,
exactly.
just
So this
bulbs or
was the
something.
same question I was about to ask. What are LED devices essentially? First, need to understand that. Do we include the tube light or do we include the bulbs as well? LED bulbs and what all do we include? That is the first question that you should ask. What time period? Okay. There's a particular festival in India during which the sale of these LED devices can go very, very high, Diwali, right? So you need to be very sure what time period are we looking at. If the person explicitly tells you that we are looking at, a normal month or a Diwali month, then you know where to go. Right? You know the basic idea. Okay, more questions, guys. These clarifying questions can also be in the form of assumptions instead of asking a question to the interview, because many times you get these guesstimates in the form of an assignment where you can directly not ask the person sitting in, there's no one sitting in front of you, right? So you cannot ask sometimes. So in that case, make sure you take assumptions, and that is why you must have noticed many times it is written that you can take your own assumptions in the assignments that you get, right? Especially in product assignments, it is almost always written that whatever assumptions you have taken, mention them explicitly there. So the assumptions you need to mention. All right, more questions, guys. So only one assumption I've come across, which was the time period and what kind of devices are we looking at. That is another question. Okay, we can ask this question whether we are looking at a particular region in Bangalore, or let's say, um, what else can we ask? Okay, we can ask this question whether we are looking at the number of LED devices uh, sold in shops in Bangalore, or
Or the online
imported,
mode.
or in the online offline mode. So that kind of question we can ask, right? That makes our work easier. So that is why we are going there. Okay, that is the first part. Now let's come to the second part, solving the problem. What are the kinds of splits that we can make to solve this question? Ideas, guys. Ideas for solving this.
According to like affordabilities, like if someone has a like if we talk about house thing, like if someone has a big house, then he requires more of an LEDs for the house. If someone has a smaller house, then there will be a less number of requirements.
So you're talking about split from the people point of view, people perspective. This person has a higher income. This one has can afford, cannot
Yeah,
afford,
yeah,
that kind of.
right.
So again, that comes in
Yeah, right.
income, right? Basic
Income,
split is
right.
income. Yeah. Okay. Income
Hmm.
is definitely one way. Income is a good way to split this. So a higher income person would, of course, be able to afford more LED devices as compared to a lower income one. All right. One question that we can ask here is that whether we are looking at the huge manufacturing hubs, right? For example, a factory would require infinite LED, so to say, they would require many LED devices, but homes would require a small number as compared to that. So, where are we using these LED devices? So that is
Yeah,
one
right.
question we can ask.
Household or the industrial.
Household versus industry, yes, precisely. So we can do that. That can be a good split. Bulb or other. So yeah, this is we had just discussed this question, Mr. Which LED devices are we considering? Bulb. So we are considering all of them. bulb as well as. This is a good question to ask. You should ask this. This should be the first question. Okay, so some people mentioned income split. What kind of purpose, right? What is the purpose? So that can be a basis for splitting it. Domestic versus commercial purpose. That is exactly what we discussed, right? Household versus industry. Totally. Even schools. What would schools come under? That would come under the commercial purpose. Schools, colleges, they also require lots of LED devices, right? What about street lights? Does it come under domestic or does it come under commercial?
Commercial.
Yeah.
Streetlights
So
aren't like sold, I guess.
precisely. So the government buys the municipal corporation or the government buys these street lights, and they would of course get it at a subsidized rate, whatever there is. But you can make a third kind of category here. But of course, they are commercial only because the government is also buying them from somewhere, and they are using it for some commercial use.
In a mass purpose, they are using so commercial.
Precisely. Okay. So what is my way of splitting this? I'm splitting this basis the age. So let's say, see, one thing you need to understand. We are looking at sold. Number of LED devices sold in Bangalore. We are not looking at the demand side, we are looking at supply side. Right? So there are two things I have already told you, right? When we discussed the structures, internal, external, import, export, supply, demand, right? Those kinds of structures. So supply, we are looking at the supply side here. Number of LED devices sold. I'm not looking at the ones that are being used. It is totally possible that 1,000 LEDs are sold, but 100 of them go waste, go unused. So I'm just looking at the sold part, right? So that is how you should solve this question ideally. But you'll of course get the same number. You'll get similar numbers since we just want the ballpark range. You'll still get similar numbers from the demand side as well. So let's say I get 100 million from the supply side. I'll get 120 million from the demand side, or 80 million. So it will be very close to that number. So I'll show you how I solve it from the demand side. I am looking at. So I am assuming first of all that the supply is equal to demand, approximately equal to demand. That is my first assumption. Second assumption here is that I am looking at all the LED the LED devices that are used in industrial, commercial, whatever individual purposes, commercial versus individual purposes, right? I'm considering all of them. All right, these are my two assumptions. So this is my answer for this question. First of all, I've told you that population of Bangalore you need to know, 12 million approximately, and what all does a person on average require? For example, table lamp, LED bulb, tube lights, even remotes have LED lights, right? Even physics lab equipment, lots of requirements are there. So I've divided it basis the age, greater than 25 years, less than 25 years. Within this, there would be some separate three segments, and there would be separate segments within the less than 25 age bracket. So greater than 25 years, we are looking at corporates, about 70% people working in companies or having their own startup, whatever. And then 10%, for example, since we're talking about Bangalore, right? Most people are working. Very, very few people are there who are not working. And a majority of them would probably be housewives. So we are looking at the number of bulbs, LED devices housewives would use at home, and then we are looking at old people. We are looking at within the less than 25 years of age. We are looking at children, and then we are looking at college students. So less than 18 years and 18 to 22 years of 18 to 24 years of age. Right. So this is the age group, and within age group, this is again we have divided it into further segments, and this is the final answer that we get: 44.8 million LED devices. Any questions on this approach? All right. So I'm assuming everyone has understood this, and so I'll make one assignment this weekend. I'll try to put one or
Diya,
two guesstimates there.
had one idea.
Yes,
So I guess we can get the data on the office space as well as the the residential spaces in Bangalore. उसका data मिल जाएगा, right? So
yes,
can
you
we
can
like
ask for that.
calculate an average of like this many LED lights are used per meter square, and then we can calculate separately like a corporate establishment will have a different value for that, and a house establishment will have a different value for that.
Correct. So you're looking at the area, right? Area covered. This is the
Yeah.
LED light. Yes, we can do that. Definitely, that can be done. So I've already told you, right? There are lots of approaches for solving these guesstimates, and it's just about how you whether it is structured or not, how you solve it, the process that you use. All that is important. So there was one more approach. All right, I'll probably send the answer separately. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions? TVs, monitors, all that is covered. You should cover all that ideally. And when you look at the supply side, you'll have to count for that separately. In the demand side, I've covered it in, let's say, 5 LED devices per person. 5 LED devices per person, which would cover everything. For example, table lamp or even TVs, monitors. This is a rough number. So it should cover even monitors or laptops, whatever. Okay. Um, Next we move on to, so there were other questions also. I have many more questions. For example, um, estimate the revenue of a movie theater. This was a question asked in VMOC product analyst interview process.